Welcome to this international conference on recent trends in material science. There has been a lot of developments in the current scenario, particularly in electronic materials and also in other areas of development such as laser materials, ferroelectric materials, nonlinear materials, and also two-dimensional materials. One of the important advances that has taken place is with respect to energy. Energy demands a lot of new materials and also for storage purposes. In the space research, there is no other alternative as of today to go for solar energy, whereas in terrestrial applications, we can use the solar energy as well as wind energy. Tamil Nadu stands as one of the biggest producers of wind energy. And Government of India has very massive programs to promote solar energy to the extent of 85 gigawatt within next 10 years. Even though the current targets have been around 20 to 25 gigawatt. The solar energy materials as of now is looking for more efficient output rather than the cost factor. Initially when they started it was more oriented towards cost factor. Now it is more oriented towards the efficiency factor. For example, there are solar panels which can produce about 400 to 500 watts in one single panel, whereas when we started about 10 to 15 years ago, it was only about 100 or so watts per panel, which is typically of the size of a door, something like 6 feet in height, or rather the length component, and about 2.5 to 3 feet in the width component. Similarly, if you talk about new material systems for fundamental research, there are new initiatives which are called as topological materials. Topological materials are still a long way to go, though the Nobel Prize has been awarded to 3 of the people who had contributed. It was a systematic fundamental investigation on the surface of a material. If you have a bulk material, we categorize them into only a very simple way as 3 categories. One is a conductor material which we all use for conducting electricity. Another is the sheath or the layer around it which protects us from getting discharge or electrical shocks, which is known as an insulating material. In between we have a category which is known as semiconductors. But for the understanding of topological materials, if a bulk material exhibits what is called as an insulating property, there has been identified states which are conducting. This is very interesting, particularly there is a methodology with which you can understand this, which is known as fractional quantum Hall effect, and with that methodology you can identify what are the conducting states on the given surface. Now, people are looking for novel applications such as quantum computing with this kind of materials which are called as topological materials. Controlling the state of the topology, the spin state is all very interesting in today's world. For example, the spin state of any material is generally described at the school level or even at the undergraduate level, that a material can have an atom, and in the atom we have electrons which are revolving around, and those revolving electrons are either in the up state or the down state, or we are also describing it as plus off or minus off. But when you can freeze this up state to the down state intermediate, then we can communicate, and that communication can be more efficient in terms of transferring the data or information without losing these properties or the data itself. This has been already in practice with layers of magnetic materials which can be fine-tuned to have a polarized state of the spin up or spin down. But now there are also opportunities which are coming in place wherein you can freeze an intermediary state and then transfer this information in that particular state to another material in the similar state, which is what is described as spintronics. There is another area which is also being useful or being followed very vigorously, is known as photonics. We have all the communication systems which are called as networking, and in these communication systems there are wired communications, and we also have internal communications which are known as LAN communications in local area networking, wherein you don't have to have a series of wires, but we can just transfer the data from one end to the other end through other optical means. And for these purposes we need photonic materials, and there are also a lot of interesting things in nanophotonics which doesn't only are used in photonic for communications, it is also used for biological applications. So you can trigger a molecule, you can orient a molecule, and thereby you can fine tune the property. If there is a small perturbation in a human system, you can orient the molecule or trigger that molecule to change its propagation, and thereby you can stop a disease propagation such as cancer, etc. So these are known as nanophotonic applications, and there are also many other applications in the field of nanoelectronics which are coming a long way. In a very simple nutshell, the material science has been playing a very dominant role in the last 30 years, and it will continue to progress in many other ways. As I said, topological materials has not been properly understood for applications, though the entire fundamentals on mathematics, fundamentals on why it behaves as a topological materials have all been very clearly understood. There are also very simple theories on 2D materials. For example, if you put a pencil dot, which we call as a carbon dot, that carbon dot is called as a three-dimensional material. But if you put an adhesive tape over and above for about 50 to 60 times, you can have a very thin layer which is called as a graphene. And this graphene can be used to absorb hydrogen, and it will follow a exchange structure that will be identified as graphene, and therefore you can store hydrogen and then discharge that hydrogen for an energy efficient activity. So there are new thinking coming in place, and still these are a long way to go, because this mass production of graphene, though it is available, the purpose of storing hydrogen on top of this surface on a spread out way and then reusing it is still to be practically followed. And so the participants can take some keen interest on two-dimensional materials. There are not only graphene, there is also silicene. Instead of using carbon, you can use silicon and you can produce silicene. And there are also other materials in topological issues. So you can try to follow this and have a bright future for your career. Thank you.